Yeah, so as I said, today we are going to look at the display property, the CSS display property. Understand? And as you know that the default behavior of any element is either what block or inline. I don't know if you could remember that we talked about this. I talk about there are some elements which when you write it, it what? It looks like this. Let's say I have H1 and I wrote something like this hello inside, and I have H2 and I wrote something like hello 2. You could see that hello and hello 2 are arranged separately. This one comes and this one comes what below it. So that is what we call block. This one is above and this one is below. Meanwhile, they are arranged here like this. But because we are using what H1, H1 is also what we call a block element, as I told you the last time. And we have something which we call inline what? Inline elements. And this, for instance, I told you like this, we have span, right? So now if I say hello 1 here, and here I say another span, and I say hello 2, you could see that look at the arrangement here. Have you seen? This one,
Yeah.
H1, H2, they are arranged what? This one comes and this one comes below it.
Mm.
But when they
Mm.
are span, they arrange itself what? Horizontally,
Horizontal.
right?
Yeah.
So that is the difference. But I know it's just same thing that you are going to look at in details. So let's go through the W3 school and then look at what does display property means. The display property is an important CSS property for controlling what? Layout. It specifies whether an HTML element is treated as block or an inline element. So put these two in mind, block or inline elements. Every HTML element has a default display value, right? It has a
Mm.
default display value, the one I just showed you now, this one. H1, H2, they are what? They are in default, they are what? Block elements. That is how it came with. In default, they are what? Block element. And when you talk about spam, in default, they are inline.
Mm.
So that is what it means here. It says that every HTML element has a default display value depending on what type of element it is. The default display value for most element is block or inline. So if you are what we are here and it say that it has either what block or inline elements. So does that mean that can't we change their what their default behavior to different behavior? We can. We can use what CSS property to what to change the block behavior of this to either inline or to just maintain it as block. Or we can also change the inline one to block or what leave it as inline. You understand?
Yeah.
So that is the main importance of this display property. And the initial what important of it. So the display property is used what to change the default display property of HTML elements. So if this one is block, I can change this to what to inline. If this one the default is inline, I can change it to block using what CSS. But if we weren't having CSS, you cannot use this H1 and turn it into what? Into inline. You could just leave it as what? As block. So if there is any place that I want to use any inline, I will just use a span instead of H1. If there is any place that I'm going to use what? Block, I'll use the H1. Or any other element that has what? that has what? Only using one block element. The default is block element. You understand? But the CSS are giving us an option. You can decide to use H1, though it is what? It is block. But if you are going to use what? CSS, then you can add this CSS to change this one to what? Inline. So you can still use H1, but you have turned a default behavior from what? From block to inline. So you have many options. So it doesn't restrict you from using only H1. And so you can use any element that is block, you can change it to what? Inline. Any element that is what? Inline, you can change it to what? To block using CSS. And the property we are going to use is this property. So you look at, they say block level element. So all element that is for, by default, they are what? All block. So let's look at them. What are they? A block level element always start on a new line and takes up the full width available, right? As I told you, a block level element always start on a new line. So if there is a one H1 here, if I add another H2 below H or H1 below H, it will come here below H. Understand? Even if it is H1 like this, it will come below H. So if I write, you see, it will come below H. If I add another H1 again, you see, it comes below H. That's how it
So
you
for this
see
one, it only happens here, right? In display properties.
What do you mean?
Like normally, if we use it like on HTML, I don't think it would look like this.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now here, I didn't change anything. It is just the same element that I'm writing. So now I'm writing it as a default behavior. You understand? It is block. We call it block element. It's not only H1. There are a lot of them. This one, look at it. There are a lot of them. Div is a block element. You understand? H1 up to H6 is a block element. That is the default. P is a block element. Form is a block element. Header is a block element. Footer is a block element. Section is a block element. So these are the default. There are a lot of them. These are the default, some of the default what. So in here, that is how it's going to behave without any CSS attaching to it. You understand?
Yeah.
So here we didn't apply any CSS. It's just the normal what? HTML. So that's what I was telling you the differences. These ones are what? Block elements. You understand? This one are block elements, and this one are what? Inline elements. Understand? So it depends on how. So if I say H1 up to H6 are block elements. So you just look at this. Let me bring a horizontal line so that it will separate both of them. Understand? So these are inline, these are what? So if for instance, if I'm going to use another block element, I can go here and say, what are the other div is also what? Block element. If I come here, I'm going to write a div. If I write div and write something inside, maybe div one, and come below it and write another div, you see how it goes, right? It comes down, it follows through. So that is block. This one is also block. That's why it also comes down. If I go and see, I'm going to use paragraph and paragraph. So this, as do it twice, you see also it's one the same thing, block element. Understand? So by default, these are all what block elements. You didn't add any CSS to it. Understand? And when you come to the inline one, by default, this is also what inline element. Look at this. You see what hello 1, hello 2, which is arranged what in a horizontal way. So if I look at what is the other elemental one, the other inline, we have what? Spam. We have what? What is this? We have link, right? And we also have
Yeah.
what? Image,
Image.
right? So here we see we have like example of like three of them, right? And we have what?
Yeah.
Here we have a lot of them. Though these are not only the what, the only the block or the only inline one, but they are only give you an example, some of them. You understand? So here, if you
Mm.
see we only use spam, we are going to use a link. You can come here and say, let's use link. So inside the link, we can put something like Google. And you want to add another link, look at how it goes.
Mm.
You see, it is on all of these that are added. You see that it's only on one line.
Mm.
You understand? So that's what we call them inline. They are in position of inline, meaning what? A line, or we can say horizontal line. Now, when we talk about
Mm.
this block, they are arranged vertically. When you add another one, it comes down. So in
Mm.
design, you have to decide, look at what you are designing, so that you can say, oh, I'm going to use spam, or I'm going to use link, or what? Div. But with the help of display property, that is in CSS, it helps us to change the behavior of this. We know that this one is inline, right? We can use display
Yeah.
property to change that inline one to make it block.
Mm.
I hope you understand now.
Yeah.
So that is the easiest, simplest example that I gave you. It's just simple. So it's first of all tells you that when it is a block, what does it do? It start on a new line. That's first of all, it start on a new line. So you understand that this H1 and the other what, the below H1 start what? Starts in a new line. So this one starts and this one ended. It came down and the second one is here. The third one is here. So it normally starts new one and what? Below a new line, right? And what does
Yeah.
it do again? And it takes up the full width available. It takes up a full width available. So look at the example that I give here. This is a div, right? So when they give a
Mm.
div, this div will take all the what, this space available. Here, because we didn't add any border here, that's why you cannot see all the width. Because if you add the border here, it will have taken all the width here.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah.
This means that it tells that this, like, all this place belong to this person. It has taken all this width. You understand? So if, for instance, if here I'm going to target this H1 and say I'm going to apply maybe border to reach H1 and I say I want to apply border and I give it 2 pixels, I say solid, and as I say the color is red. Look at what happens to all the H1.
Mm.
You see, I've given the border 2 solid and one red color. So look at the width. Even though the test is ending here, why didn't it take this space as well, the width? But it tells you that it starts on a new line and takes up the full width available. So here the full width available is from here to here. So it takes up all of it. If I try to increase, it will take any space that is there. See, you understand?
Yeah.
It's still there. It took this all the space here, available space. So that is
Mm.
what the block element does. You see. Even if I stretch it, it's still taking up that space remaining. Understand? Unless maybe I set my own width. So now if I come here and say I want to have a width of, let's say, 400 pixels. Now it has what? Given me a width of 400 pixels. Now even if I stretch it, it's still going to leave up to that 400 pixels. You understand? So the width is still 400. But if I didn't add anything and I leave it like that, it will take all the space. Understand? So that is what block element is. You understand? Here we didn't add any CSS to it for the property. I mean the display property that we are talking about. We didn't add it. We are just looking at how the HTML element look like, the default behavior of it. You understand? So that is how it is now. Right? So now let me make it easy for you so that you can understand. If not, it will confuse you. So let's say that we are just targeting, because we already know that these two H1, they are at block element, right?
Yeah.
And we also know that um, spam is also what? Inline element, right?
Yeah.
So let's concentrate between this H1 as a block element and spam as an inline element, so that it wouldn't confuse you. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So now if now here H1 I added border as this, and it gave me this red. So let me add another border for this inline one. That means I'm going to target what? The spam, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll come here and say span, and say I'm going to also give it a border, 2 pixels, and say solid. Maybe you can use dotted so that it will be different. And I say, but I give it blue color. Maybe I can increase this for you to see. Maybe 5. Maybe I can leave it as solid. Right?
Mm.
So what happened? So now can you see the difference now?
Mm.
Just look at the differences. Right? Let's look at the difference now. So this one is what? Is the inline. And this one is what? The block. Well, let me remove this. I think this one is confusing. So let me just move this, make it. I understand. So now these two are block and these two are inline, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't add anyone. We didn't add that display properties to any of it. We didn't add anything. It's just a default behavior. We just added what? Border to both of them. You understand?
Mm.
Okay. So now let's look at it. When we were talking about the block, which is this one, we said it will what? Take all the space, the available what? Width, right?
Mm.
Notice that this one, we say it is block. And when we talk about block, it what? It starts from what? The first line. And when we add another block element, it starts what? From one. We start in a new line.
Yeah.
So you know that always it means that the block element always take up what? The available width, the space available for the width. It takes up all of it, but not the height, right?
Yeah.
But the height is just this, it doesn't take anything. But the width, it takes all of the what? The length of the width. But when you come to the inline one, because it is inline, it cannot take up anything. You understand?
Yeah.
It cannot take up anything like maybe taking up the width or something like that. It just uses its own what available space based on the text inside, right? So that is the
Yeah.
difference. So if you are designing, you have to look at these two things. Okay. So now let's see that we know that this one is block. And I told you that you can apply CSS to change the default behavior. If I want to change this to look like this one, what do? I have to add what? Display property, right?
Mm.
So now if we add display, if I say display, in the display I said what? It was block, right?
Yeah.
This first one is called block. It default. The default one is block. So now if I go and say inline, what happened?
It's changed.
So now it look like this.
Mm.
You understand now? But if I go back
Yes.
and I didn't add anything, it just look at the same thing as it was with block. But if I even write block, it still stay the same because it default
It's
behavior is the same thing as block. So even if I say block, the same thing, right?
yeah.
So that is the main property of this thing. You see inline, it tends to inline, similar to this, right? So now, what about here, the second one, which is inline? If I say display and I say block, look at it also.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that is how it looks like. So you can decide to use spam, even though its name or its main default is what inline. But when you use display property and you say you want either block or inline, it will change it to what the way you want it. You understand? So that is the simplest way to understand this. It's not anything complicated. It's easy for you to understand. I hope you are getting me.
Yeah.
Okay. So for instance, let's do another example. Maybe if I see if you could tell me. For instance, I will also delete all this and ask you to give me an example looking at those elements that we've mentioned here. So give me an element which is block, a default element which is block. Apart from each one, give me different elements.
H2.
Well, H2, H1, H2, H6, they are the same. So I don't want them. I just want different one.
Div.
Okay, div is part. What else?
Mm. We can use H. You say H. Div, yeah, the header.
Header. Okay, good. Header.
Huh?
So if I say header, header is what? A block element, right? But normally, when we say header, we don't use header only. We put something inside. So even if we say header, header is the same thing. So you can just use it as an example. So let me just say, give an example, say header one. So if I add another header again, it will become one, it will come below it, right? So now I have header. So that's why this one came below it. So now give me another example for inline.
Huh?
Give me an example of inline element.
Span.
Apart from spam, we talk about spam. I don't want different one.
Mm. But is it supposed to be in line? And span is
That is the
only element that
spam is
can
not
be
the
on.
problem. I show you here. Look at here. I even show example of block level element are this. And inline element are this.
Yeah.
Right. So you're here that I show. That's why I show. I thought you are looking at this. So sometimes when I show something like this, you have to look at this and see. That's why I was like, not spam because I talk about spam, not div or h1. I talk about those. So you could have given me something different. So let's say we are going to use image, right? So let's say I'm going to use image, img. And image, I think we have to get an image somewhere so that we can use it. I can just see images. Maybe let me see image like this. Let me just go here and look at some image. Okay, let's take this image. So I can just copy it. It's a bed, maybe. So let's see a bed. So I can just rename it as a bed, right? Yeah, I could leave it as a bed, so we can leave it like that. So now if I add the media, I can just add bed. So this is the bed. So maybe let me reduce the width. So maybe we can use CSS, and that's, yes, let's use CSS so that come here and save the first one. We say header. So I can just say header. And then second one is image img. Set the width to maybe, let's say, 450 pixels. So 400 pixels is okay, right? So let's say this one is the height should be. Okay, let me put that. Well, it doesn't look nice. Let's leave it for the pixels like this. So now what we have? We have image and we have this, right? By the image, we added only one. Okay. But we say the image is what, inline. So if we add another image below it, what happened? It look like what? A block, right? But for instance,
Yeah.
if we actually, okay, it look like, why do you think it look like this? Normally, it's supposed to what? To look like what? We are saying it is inline, right?
Yeah.
And we say this one is block. That's why this one, because it's blocked, that's why it came below it. So let me add another one. So 1, 2, 3, it came blocked. But why is it that this image look like this? Meanwhile, we say image is a
I
line.
think
Why
the
do you
image
think?
is big. That's why it can't fit the other
Yeah,
side.
that's correct. So because the image is big, it cannot fix here. So if I increase it like this at this in a position, you understand? Now you see how, because the image is bigger, it cannot what, be inside the first what space. So it has what to wrap down, right?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we call wrap. When you look at, when someone says wrap, for instance, now it is here. When I try to squeeze there, you see, look at the view. So because it cannot fix here, it will come down. That's why we call wrap. So it wrap down. You see, because that's why it wraps and come down. So, but if I see the image, since it is shown, then I can make it. Let's see the image will be, let's say 70 by 100 pixels. If I say 100 pixels, now it's what it enters there, or maybe 160. Now it is like this. You understand? Okay,
Yeah.
so now here, let me add the border here so that you can see this one clearly. 3 pixels, solid, and then blue. This one, see how it is what it's called block. This one is what it's called inline. So that's why it's adding like this. So now if I come here and say, what should I do now to make this one inline? What should I do?
You add display.
Display, and then what?
Put inline. Inline.
Put. Make sure you look at inline is combined, right? So note
Yeah.
that inline, right? So what about the image? If I want to turn it to block,
You put display.
Display
Input block
input
as
block,
property.
right? See now it came here like this block. So that is what display property does for us. That is a CSS property. Understand? So let's look at another different what value. You understand? Here we look at the what the main property you are looking at is display, but the values what can change. I talk about the inline and talk about the block, so that you understood these two different things, inline and block, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's look at another value. We talk about inline. We say display an element as an inline element, and block displays an element as a block element. What about content? Instead of using inline or what block, what about if I clear this and say content? What will happen? Understand? So it tells that it makes the container disappear, making each child element children of the element the next level up in the DOM. So what it just means is that, let me create an example. Okay, so let me try if I can see some of this example and try to use this as an example. Okay, so I think the best way is to, okay, let me use it like this. Okay, so that I think it will be easier for you to understand. Right? Okay. Okay, so you see this as an example. When you say display property as none, it means display none, don't display anything. Let me see, where is this? Okay, so here we are targeting this. But P example what? 1. Display as none. So which one is the P example 1? This is the what? You are talking about this. You understand? So this is targeting this. So we say display none. So we look at the class which is x1. So we go here, you see what? px1. You see display what? None. You see this one is there, but it's not showing here. Okay, I think the best way is to make it one by one. You understand it? Yeah, I think because now it confuses you. It's many in your eyes. Cannot really understand what is going on. Okay. Okay, so now you can see. Okay, let me move this. Okay, so now look at it carefully. You see this? Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, now we have H1, which is say the display property. This display property, right? And then here, let me remove this, right? So here we see what display, and then this one is this. Hope you are seeing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and the third one is this one. From this P to here. This. But here we've written here. Why is it not showing here? Look at the CSS. What we said from the CSS. Why is it not showing here? Meanwhile, we wrote everything. We wrote this text 1, text 2, text, but why is it not showing here?
Because you're right, it is not supposed to show. That's why it's not.
Yeah, but what did I wrote there? Where did I wrote that?
You wrote none.
None. And where is that none that I wrote? And which CSS did I apply none to?
Text decoration.
There's the question. Where's the decoration?
Mm.
Just
Yes, yes.
look at the what? What are that? I'm looking at this. This is P. This one is already showing, right? This one H2 is showing because when you see display none, this here is showing here. But this I'm not showing. Why? Because I'm targeting this. The class. We talk about class and ID, right?
Yeah.
So I'm targeting this. This is the P as a paragraph, and this is the class. And I said when there is what dot here, there is dot x1 dot x1, meaning I'm targeting this class. And P is what is this P. You understand? Always don't look at it. Whatever you see I've picked here, right? And I wrote it inside the CSS. I'm targeting those things. So whatever CSS that I apply, it will affect those. You understand?
Mm.
So now what I did here is x1 is the class. I can remove this that p there is d. It will still work the same thing, but just that when you write the p, that p is just there to show that your direction is from here, and then you are targeting what you are using the class as a what your target as a selector. You understand? So when you
Yeah.
see something like this, you can use a P and add dot this because that dot represent the class. So you can just write x1. So that's why they wrote P dot x1. But if you don't want that one, you can even remove this and it will still work the same thing. I hope you understand.
Mm.
That's why the P is there. So we are targeting this P and a class. So when you say none, it means that since I'm targeting this P and P is having children of all this, so it means that I said display none, I mean all whatever is inside the P shouldn't show. Even the P shouldn't show all of this. Nothing should show. Because I say display none. If you want to see the example, so that if the display I said I remove the display, it is there, right?
Mm.
But if I say none, don't show anything. How do you understand now?
Yeah.
That is what the none is doing. If I come here and say I have something like a link, like maybe A, and the link I give it the link as a maybe I say google.com like this, right? This is showing, right? But when I go to the CSS and say I'm going to target this A and see A and I see display and I say none, it's gone. Even though it is written here, but it's not again, it's not here again.
Yeah.
So that's what the display none is doing. Here, when you look at display none, this thing, none, the element is completely hidden from the document flow. And it does not take up any space. So it just is what? It's hidden. I hope you understand now. So that is what we talk about display none. Whatever I add, I can just do the same thing, display none, it will be hidden. Even if I said I want to add something like maybe a div, and instead of div, maybe I can add maybe a list, home, understand, and I said home, house, or maybe I should have UL as a one other list. See home, right? So even if I have something like this, I can target only UL, or I can target this one because this one is the main body, the main one container. So if I go here, it is showing here. So if I go inside my CSS and I wrote what? I wrote div. I'm targeting this main container as a div. And say display, and I say none. It's going to be out. I hope you understand now. So that's the what? The another value for the display property. We talk about the display block. We talk about display inline. We talk about display none. So that is what is doing here. Understand? So we're going to remove them. Okay, so let's move forward. What next? This one. Talk about display block. Display block is the same thing. It means that bring back the what? The none. You understand?
Yeah.
None means hidden. Don't display it, don't show it. Block means show it. You understand? Show it, and even if you show it, leave it as block. As you already know, I'll talk about the block element. Right?
Yeah.
So normally we use it in between these things. Either block or what? None. But there's always what the difference between the block and inline. If you want to change the something to block from block to inline, you can just write there. So all these things are now covered. None, inline, block. So let's look at what is inline block. What is inline block? Look at this. Which one is going now? Okay. So now we have, now can just take this. Okay. I think now I can just continue with this since you've understood how it works now. So look at this clearly. Display none, you already know it. It starts from where? This. Display none, right? So this one is targeting this, which means don't show anything. Okay. Display inline. Display inline is this one. We see how inline is, right?
Yeah.
We talk about this, the inline one. This is how it was displayed. And what? Display block. Look at how it's displayed. Right?
Yeah.
But when I talk about that display inline block, what happened? You see how it is. It is inline and it is block at the same time. You understand? So look at X4. Which one is X4? This is X3. This is X3. This one is X4. So we are using what? Span. And span what? Should be inline, right? Let's talk about this one. Span should be inline, right? But when we look at the X4, we said it should be inline with block. Right? So now it is inline and at the same time it is block. Span itself is what? Inline. Right?
Yeah.
So it is inline at the same time block. So inline block. It means that now it will not take up any space here. If we were to be only block, you see that it has what? It take up all the space here. Yeah, but now it is inline block. It's not only block. Now it is inline block. So there is inline which is attached to it. So now it cannot take all the space here. I hope you understand now. So all of this has its meaning. Inline block. So we have to know that, oh, this one now, it's the span because we are using span and span it is inline. You understand? So we say inline block. We didn't change the span to block, right? But we made it as what? Inline block. Now it didn't take all the space. Meanwhile, although it is what? It's only what? A span. All of this, you have to get make sure you do some practice on it. If not, you cannot just easily understand it like that. Sometimes explaining it becomes some difficulties like this because it's difficult if you don't have practice. You have to do some practice on it and see how it works. Then you can know that, yeah, this is how it works. You understand? By following the example, you can see the differences. But then you ask yourself, how do you understand it when you are applying it? You understand? So when you look at your display flex, this one is our display flex. Understand? Display flex, and display grade. This one is display grade. The display flex is similar with the what? The inline one. Understand? Just put it in your mind. It's similar to what? The inline one, and the grade similar to what? The block one. How do you understand now?
Yeah.
Look at remember that we are all using span, and span is inline, right? You're using span, so all of those are inline. So when you change something to block, it will turn into block. So look at it. This one, the span is what? Inline. But because we wrote block, look at it has taken the space here. Because that is the characteristics of what? Block. It takes the what? The space of the width. You understand now? So when you come here, we say display flex. Assuming you have a container, this is what? Your container. Your container now is what? This P. Inside the paragraph or P, you have these three span. Text 1, text 2, text 3. So now, this P as a container now turn itself as a flex. It's flexible now. Things can move inside. That's why when we say flex. So it means that let this container be flexible. How do you understand? So now it tells you that let those inside this P be flexible. So test 1, test 2, test 3, they are now flexible. So they are now flexible. They can now move to each and every place. And some of what the values that we normally have, although we didn't reach there because we would do flex and grid. We didn't reach there, but some of the flex values that we also have are we have what we call justify content. We can make justify content to the middle, understand, to start or to the end. Understand? So for now, this one is normally it looks at the starting what display. It start here. It start at this section. And so now I can just, if I want to move this thing, and I target the X5 as the target here, right? The X5 here, display what? Display say flex. So look at here. If I add another property and I say justify content, and I say center, look at what happened. What happened? You see that it moved from this starting position and it came to the what? Middle as the center. So because I said flex, that container, the P container now is flexible. So things inside it can move. I hope you understand.
Yeah.
Things inside it can move. So here, if I say use the center, I can clear the center and say what? Justify content, and I say what? Space around or space between or space evenly, meaning spread, because we have test 1, test 2, test 3. So if I say space evenly, it will spread the spaces between them. You understand?
Mm.
So now, test one, test two, test three are all spaced evenly. So here, this space is equal to this space, equal to this space, equal to this space. But they are all inside the container because I set the container to be flex, which is this P5, this. So all those inside these things is now what can be moved in a different direction. You understand? Because the P is now a flex, it's now flexible. Things can move inside. You understand? Although we didn't reach there, but when we reach there, I'll show you how these things work. But I'm just trying to tell you so that you know when you write flex, you know what it means. It means that whatever it is inside, elements that are inside the container will become flexible. You understand? Here I see display flex. So look at here, this place is what? Is inline block. Display inline
Mm.
block. So if I say justify content and I say center, if I say justify content and I say center, nothing will happen here. Because this container is not flexible. It's not flexible. I didn't see display flex. You understand? It is only
Yeah.
this container that I see display flex. So that's why when I say what justify content, I say what center, it comes at the center. But this one, nothing. And if you look at even this, you see that this one, because I say flex, it's already what? Taking all the space. So that this one that is inside can be able to move freely.
Mm.
But this one, because it is inline block, I cannot move anything inside it. So that's why. So it's not flexible. It's block. But this one, immediately I say flex, can position it. I start. Now I can see end. You see it goes end. I understand. So that is normally another one property for display, but we are not doing, we are just doing the display. So you have to understand only the display. The display value, we have flex. And also we have grid. You see the flex arrange itself horizontally, right?
Mm.
The grid to arrange itself vertically. You understand? Right?
Mm. Yeah.
But no, there's something that you have to note. You see this, we say flex, right? It only takes up this what line. It tests the where the test is what can take the space the test can take. This test one, test two, test three, right? But when it comes to the grid, it takes the space of the heights. Look at, right?
Yeah.
It take this space and then it took all the space here, similar to what we did with the block. Remember?
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, you can relate all these two, and you can say that grid is a block. This, right? You understand? It look like block, right? Because it take all the space here. Similarly to one to grid, when you add one, look at the grid, it takes all the space here. You understand? But it arrange itself what vertically. Although the block arrange itself what also what vertically. Yeah, vertically, right?
Yeah.
But the difference is that because this one they are inside the container, it looks up to the container, not the children here. But here, it looks up to the children, not only the container. I hope you understand. So mostly
Yeah.
this display is looking at the container, Grid is looking at the container. So this flex makes the container flexible, and this grid make the container looks as vertical or block. Understand? So mostly these two things are very important, the flex and the grid. We shall come to it later on. But you see here we have flex box and we have what grid. So these two are some of what the topic that we will cover later. But I just want you to understand the display. If you understand the display property, you definitely understand the flex, the CSS grid. So just put this display property in your mind. I mean the flex and not of the grid, because we shall look at it later on. It's very, very important in web design, because especially when we come to the responsive design. You understand? So that is the example that they give you there. I think the example that they give is a very good example. So even if you don't understand, you can just go and just check this example. Look at how it is. It's just simple because they give you an example and they give you what? The drawing, how it should look like. You understand? So you can read something about, you see the flex, it displays an element as a block level flex container. You see flex container. So it means that it makes the container flexible. And grid display an element as a block level grid container. Understand? It make the children become as a block level elements. You understand? So we have inline block, as I told you, an element as an inline level block container. It is what inline level but block container. So the element itself is formatted as an inline element, you see, but we can apply height, width, padding, and margin value. You understand? So this one you can apply height, width, padding, and margin value. Because it formatted itself as an inline element. The display property is used to change the default behavior of the HTML element. Changing an inline element to a block element or vice versa can be used for making the page block a specific way and it still follow the web standard. Understand? So the example as I give you, a common example is to change the list element to inline. Because list, we know list is what? A block element, but you can change it to inline, being as a horizontal menu. So if you want to create a menu, that's why you see a lot of people create, if they want to create a menu, they'll use that thing, that line. So sometimes you ask yourself, why are they using this as what? A link or what? You see, they write home and they're doing that, something like this. You see a lot of this like this. And when they add CSS, they will make it inline. So for instance, if I want to add CSS to it, I can just say ULLI. I'm targeting the LI, the list. Then I'll see display. Then I'll see inline. Then this one will become inline. You understand? Meanwhile, their initial is what? Block. But because they are linked, I want to use this as a link. I'll change your display property to be inline so that they will be as inline. You understand? Even though some people use the same similar way, some people will normally use it as like list, and inside the list we put what? A link inside, like A. You understand? And now in the A, we can now give our all our list the link. So now if I duplicate this to be a 3, you see that it's what? It is arranged what? In line. And so meanwhile, this one is there. But if I remove this like this, it's come what? Block. Because itself, the list itself is a block. So it will like that. If I want it to be in line, then I set the display profile to be in line. Now all of these are in line. Understand? Then if I want to remove the line you see what do you normally do? Can you remember? You can target the A and see what? Can you remember?
Hmm?
Can you
Image,
remember? Can you remember how to remove these lines? If I'm targeting
uh,
the A,
text decoration.
yeah, so I say test decoration and I set it to none. So it was all the lines gone. Understand? Then if I want to set maybe padding, I set padding to maybe 15 pixels to separate all this. You understand? Then I can get a link. I understand. So that is how we use. So you see there how important this display property is. You understand? But because the display property doesn't take all the space, if it is inline, we just leave it like this. We don't need to add any width. But if it were to be a block element, we could just, because the block element takes up all the space here. So we can decide to add width in order to add for a specific width that we want. So let's take it, put it in your mind as understand. So the same thing that we already did here. So what is the default display value for most HTML elements? I talk
Block
about
or
it,
inline.
block or inline. Okay, understand. So that's the default, block or inline. We'll move to visibility. I think the visibility is the same thing as I told you, none, right? So display as none. So when you see display as none, the element is completely hidden from the document flow and does not take up any space. So it is hidden. So this one is hidden. When I click, you see it shows up. And so it's not how they make it. And this one is just JavaScript that they use. And so you can make it to be none, but you can make a JavaScript so that when I click, and it will show it. So you see that here they see that none, right? But when they use the JavaScript, they use that they say style.display and they set it to a block, meaning show. So this one is don't show, meaning none, but here block means show. I understand. And this one is part of JavaScript. You are not there, but I can click here and show you how it works. When I click here, click to show or hide panel, you see it is here. When I click, it's hidden. When I click, it shows. When I click, it's hidden. So this is the same way that I use here in one of my one of the trading that I was trying to do. You see, the same thing. I designed this. I was looking at how just trying to just do something, looking at my own websites. I understand this one. So I was designing this top, and so I was trying to see how I would design it. And so I designed it. So if you click this, you see this one is showing. You click here, it go. Click, it shows. If you click, it go. So it's the same similar way that you can see here. The one I was showing you here. When you click here, it shows. When you click, it's hidden. You understand? So it's the same thing that normal, but this one involves JavaScript. This one, the JavaScript. You understand? So I think let me see. Yeah. Okay, so this is another example that they give. You see display none or visibility say hidden. So you see display none, when you click, it means it's going to remove. When you see hidden, it's going to hide itself. And when you see reset, you click, it's going to bring all of them. And so this is part of JavaScript. But normally it also can use these properties, display as none or display or visibility as hidden. It means that you also see another one, CSS property, display, and one visibility as well, hidden. You see, so now if you see visibility, you can say hidden. But the difference between this and what none is none doesn't take up space, but hidden, when you hide something, it doesn't mean that that thing is gone. It is there, meaning it takes up space. You understand?
Mm.
We are saying the thing should be hidden. That doesn't mean that the thing is not there. I hope you understand. So here, if I target this UL and the display I said none, it means nothing is there. It's gone. You understand? It doesn't take any space. But if instead of display I said none, if I didn't use display and I use visibility like this and I say hidden, it is hidden, but it still take up space. It means that it is there. You understand? And it still take up space. I hope you understand now.
Yeah.
So either I can use display property as none and delete this, meaning it's not showing, understand, and it doesn't take space. So most of the time we use this one because it doesn't take space. I don't even see people using the hidden one, hidden and this now. And most of the time that is why we use, understand. So that is what it's saying. You have visibility, you can set it to hidden, or maybe display you say to none. So you see, display may specify how an element should be displayed. Visibility specify whether or not an element should be visible. You understand? Just the same logic. The thing is, you are saying display, you are saying whether the element should display or it shouldn't display. So it means that you either show to the person or don't show to the person, meaning it doesn't take any space. But if you say visibility, you are saying that the thing is there, you understand, but don't show to the person, hide it or show it. You understand now?
Mm.
So drag and drop the correct property and value to hide a P element from view while still reserving its space. So which one are you going to use?
Visibility.
Visibility. And then I use what?
Hidden.
Hidden. Okay. So you have to know that. So I think that is all about display. You understand? I was thinking of adding position to the display, but I think we already have it maybe as another lesson next. So I will just leave it for now so that it wouldn't confuse you. And so because this position is just like putting something, make it a stick, or maybe make it fixed. You understand? But I will leave it for you to adjust the display property. Then if after you have understood it very well, then we can move to the position.